Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Gimli Film Festival live stream. My name's Darcy Waite. I'm one of the producers here at Eagle Vision, and I'm the host of APTN's That's Awesome. So first and foremost, I just want to do a land acknowledgement. We'd like to acknowledge that the Gimli Film Festival resides on the Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Cree, Dakota, Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We're privileged to be able to live, work, and play on this ancestral lands. So thanks everyone for tuning in to the Funding for Indigenous Creatives panel discussion. So before we get going, I just want to take a moment to thank our RBC, for sponsoring all this free program on the Gimli Film Festival live stream. This is the very first panel discussion taking place, so please take a look at the full Gimli Film Festival streaming schedule for many other inspiring masterclasses by attending guests. And I've seen a couple of them that are coming up, and I'm actually pretty excited to see them. So also part of this panel, we encourage those watching at home to engage with our guests by asking questions or leaving comments in the live chat. You can find the box to the right or below this video. To begin with, our panelists will take about 10 minutes to tell us about their organization and the dedicated programs they have geared towards Indigenous creatives. Following that, we're going to open up the floor to the guests, and you can ask questions in the live chat, and we'll ask our panelists. So joining us today, we have 4 guests representing a number of cultural institutions all across Canada. First, we have Jill Sampson, the Deputy Director of Portfolio Management of the Canada Media Fund. We have Adam Garnet Jones, the Indigenous Liaison at Telefilm Canada. We have SHELLEY MacDougall, the Manager of Central Region Programming at APTN. So again, thank you guys for joining us. So what we'll do is we'll get you guys to introduce yourselves. We'll start with you, Jill.
Great. Thank you. Happy to be here. So I work for Telefilm Canada, but like Adam, but our team administers the CMF fund, which is Canada Media Fund. So it's confusing for a lot of people because we work at Telefilm, but we administer another company's funds. But our team strictly works for the CMF funding model. And the majority of, I'm getting into it. Anyway, I've been at Telefilm for about 12 years working on selective funds and been working on the Indigenous portfolio for about 11. So I'm happy to be here to talk about it.
Adam?
Tante, everybody. My name is Adam Garnet Jones. I'm from just outside of Edmonton. I'm Cree and Métis, and I live in Toronto, and I work at Telefilm as the lead for Indigenous initiatives at Telefilm and the Canada Media Fund. I've been here for a couple of years, and before that, I was working primarily as a writer and director, working in the community, and now I'm doing advocacy work for Indigenous creators from within Telefilm.
Shelley?
Hi, I'm SHELLEY MacDougall. I'm the Manager of Programming for the Central Region at APTN. The Central Region is Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories. We also have an Eastern office and a Western office for all of the regions in Canada. I've been there for about 4.5 years now, and prior to that, I was in Vancouver, and I've been in television for 23 years right now, this July.
Awesome. All right, so Jill, we'll start off with you. We'll give you 10 minutes
Great.
to talk about your organization and kind of the programs you have for Indigenous creatives.
Thanks, Darcy. We have lots of programs. Our programs are the majority of our programs are broadcaster based, meaning that you have to have a broadcaster to trigger some license money to come in and access the funding. But we do have a couple of programs pre-dev. For instance, we have Indigenous pre-dev and dev. So pre-development is basically, you're writing a pitch document to pitch a broadcaster, and we will help you with that funding. You can access up to, it's almost $26,000. It's like $25,800. You can apply with 2 applications only per year. It's a first come, first served fund. So when the funding is gone, the funding's gone. We also have a development fund where you do And I should say for the pre-dev, you need a letter of interest from a Canadian broadcaster, but no money has to be attached. For development, we have a great development fund that does require a broadcaster to be on board. We don't have a threshold for license. They can give whatever license they want. You can access up to $200,000 in the development. So that sometimes that takes place. You'll work with a broadcaster and you'll come in for, if you're working on a series, you'll write a couple of scripts. They may want you to come back and write a couple more or work on a Bible, and we can help you along that journey up to maximum $200,000. That fund as well, you can only apply to with 2 applications per year per applicant. And if you're regional, we cover 75% of it. So the broadcaster, so the contribution only becomes it's 75 with and if you're not regional, if you're based in Ontario or Toronto, then it's 50-50. We also have a new fund this year called Early Stage Development. This is going to be in the fall. I think it's October 1st. It's for writers. Okay. So writers only, not producers, just writers. If you're a producer and you work with a writer, you should apply to pre-dev or dev. But this fund is just for writers, and it's going to be a selective fund. And we have 15% of the fund set aside for Indigenous and visible minorities. And the threshold to get in, if you are an Indigenous person, Indigenous writer, is you have to have 5 credits as a writer that have been 5 produced credits that have been broadcast on a Canadian broadcaster for your work. And the guidelines are up. I encourage everyone to have a look at it. So it's going to be a great program. I think it'll be a very popular program, I think. And we also have a great production fund called the Indigenous Production Fund. We just met this week, actually, to talk about projects. It happens once a year. The deadline's usually June, beginning of June. And we have, let me just check my amount so I don't get it wrong. Yeah, we have $7.83 million for that fund, which is pretty great. Mm-hmm. So for that fund, you do have to have a broadcaster meet a 10% minimum threshold, which means basically it has to give you 10% of your budget to get into the fund. It's a selected fund. We have an Indigenous jury that helps us select the projects. And it's a fantastic fund. We get great projects. You can, if you're a feature film director, a lot of people think if it's feature film, they just have to go to Telefilm, but you can also access CMF funding if you have a broadcaster on board. Okay. So if you apply to Telefilm, and you can apply to the CMF as well. But if you are a TV series, we also, it can be drama, it can be a comedy series, it can be a kids show, it can be animated, it can be a documentary one-off, it can be a documentary series. In the guidelines, you will find all the different projects that we support. There are also, you'll find a list of projects that we don't support. We don't fund talk shows. We don't fund reality shows. So there's a list. And if anybody has any questions about a project that they're thinking of bringing into us, we actually have something called a pre-application consultation. So if you go into our site, which is called Dialogue, and you send in, a one-pager of your creatives or something, or a script that you've been working on, and you're not sure whether it would be eligible for funding, we will look at it and we will give you feedback and let you know whether we think that you should apply, or whether we think that it's not a genre that we support, or they give you, some advice about how you could possibly try and make your project more eligible for us. Yeah. So I don't know if that took 10 minutes, probably didn't, but.
And no worries, no worries. It's some great information. I'm always curious about how you combine CMF and telefilm if you have a broadcaster for feature films. So it's kind of.
And we do every year, we do have a couple of projects that apply to both funds.
Oh, it's amazing. Let's
probably
ask more questions.
Can I just say also, I just want to say the how much we offer. So for the production funding, if you have a drama or an animation, you can access $750,000 from the fund. And if it's a documentary or a children's and youth project, you can access $550,000. So it's a great fund to flesh out your funding model.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just got a question, but I'll ask that after.
Okay.
Adam? Yeah.
All right. I am not as focused and good at remembering details as my colleague, so I'm going to switch over to a PowerPoint that I brought. So just bear with me for a second. I'm coming to you from the Indigenous stream at Telefilm and Indigenous initiatives generally between Telefilm and the CMF. I see that my camera light is off. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
And you're seeing the screen?
Yeah, we can see the screen and everything.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Great. So just to get started, the Indigenous stream is a stream of funding for Indigenous creators that started, I think will be our 4th year of committing funds. It was initially created as a 5-year commitment, and it's since been made an ongoing commitment. So that means that once the program has run for 5 years, it's not going to disappear. The intention is from Telefilm to keep delivering this program year after year. So the initial commitment was to a minimum of $4 million a year to be spent on the development and production of Indigenous projects. And the decisions would be made by, or decisions would be recommended by, an Indigenous jury. So that process has continued. So each year when people come in with projects, there's a group of Indigenous filmmakers, film programmers, broadcasters, people who are accustomed to looking at applications, who review the applications and recommend decisions to Telefilm. Usually that jury is made up of Indigenous people from across the country, and it changes each time. So if you apply 1 year and you get a group of people who don't respond to your project, the next year it'll be a new fresh set of eyes. So that's a nice thing about the program. Before getting into the details of the program, it's important to talk about what an Indigenous production is for the purposes of Telefilm. So for Telefilm, as you can see on the slide here, in consultation with Telefilm's Indigenous working group, we came up with the definition that an Indigenous production would be one where at least 51% of the project's copyright is held by a production company whose majority shareholder is Indigenous. So it needs to be an Indigenous owned and controlled company. And also 2 of the 3 key members of the creative team. So at this point for feature film, we're looking at producer, director, and screenwriter. 2 out of those 3 positions have to be held by an Indigenous person. People do come in with collaborative projects with non-Indigenous people sometimes, and as long as the production is meeting that 2 out of 3, generally it's considered eligible. Although sometimes the jury questions whether or not they want to make those kinds of collaborative projects a priority for the fund. So that's the kind of thing that we talk about at an early pre-application stage if you're thinking about coming in with a project. So in general, it's never too early to come to me to talk to me about your project, to get a read of your script, and to get feedback on where would be a good fit within Telefilm to bring your project. So I'll just talk about the different programs here. There's some information on these slides that's for general programs, but I'm just going to speak about Indigenous programs because that's the focus of today. So as of this last year, we started an Indigenous selective component of the development program. That program is really wide open. In order to be eligible, you need to be an Indigenous producer or producer/writer who has a credit as a producer on a qualifying short film or a certain amount of television. In order to qualify, your short film needs to have basically screened in a professional context, or your feature film needs to have screened in a professional context, or you need to have produced some TV. And the list of festivals that are eligible for that is pretty long. I forget how many are on it, but I don't know, it's over 100, I think. So basically, if you are an Indigenous filmmaker who is making content and exhibiting it, it doesn't matter if it's shorts, doesn't matter if you have a history in TV but haven't entered that feature film world, you're still eligible to come in for development. You can submit up to 2 projects, and if selected, you will receive up to $18,000, and we fund about 10 or 11 projects per year. So if you're doing the math in your head, that leaves $200,000 for development and $3.8 million for production of Indigenous feature films at Telefilm. Now moving into the production programs, there's Talent to Watch, which used to be called the Micro Budget Program. That's for the funding of first feature films and web projects from filmmakers who haven't yet made a feature film. This stream works a little bit different than others because what Telefilm does is we rely on recommending partners from all over the country to do an open call for projects, and those partners select, usually I think it's 2 or 3 projects depending on the recommender and what their arrangement with Telefilm is. But each of those recommenders forwards those selected projects to Telefilm, and then the jury sits down and evaluates the projects and makes their recommendations from there. So what you want to do if you're interested in Talent to Watch, first of all, is go to the Telefilm website, check out the Talent to Watch page, scroll down under resources, and there's a PDF there with a list of, I think it's 64 or so recommending partners all across the country. So look at that list and find a partner organization within your area. Maybe it's a film co-op, maybe it's a film school, maybe it's a festival that you've screened content at. It's very likely that you'll find somewhere for you to enter, and reach out to them and ask them what their application process is for Talent to Watch. It's a pitch-based decision-making program, which means that basically the primary emphasis of the people evaluating applications is the pitch video. So you want to be able to put together a really strong pitch it to a partner, they recommend it to Telefilm, and then the Indigenous jury takes a look at it. The other super important part about that program is all of the recommending partners can recommend one Indigenous project on top of their regular slots for Talent to Watch. So if it's a partner like a film school that can normally recommend 1 project or 2 projects, they can recommend those 2 projects, plus they can recommend an additional Indigenous project. So if you as a filmmaker are approaching those partners, it's really important to remind them of that, because that can be your gateway into getting in front of the jury. The regular production program is easier in a number of ways in that it operates more like Telefilm's other programs. But that is where the bulk of that $4 million production investment goes. So that fund supports the production of Indigenous films with budgets between, above $250,000 and up. In general, within Telefilm, we talk about films that are below $2.5 million as low budget, and films that are above $2.5 million as higher budget or national projects, but they're all evaluated by the same jury. And for the purposes of the Indigenous stream, the qualifications are pretty similar. But that's something, again, that you can reach out to me and ask me more about. Looking at my notes here. It's important to know also with the Indigenous production program, you can come in with a documentary project, or you can come in with a fiction film project. And that's something that hasn't been the case with a lot of Telefilm's programs in the past. And that's another thing that makes the Indigenous stream a little bit unique. There's also a theatrical documentary stream, but that's open to everyone, including Indigenous creators, so I won't get into that too much. And I think I'll basically wrap it up there, but on this final slide, there's contact information for myself and for other folks at Telefilm that you might want to reach out to about your project. So please get in touch with me anytime. August, September, in the fall is actually a really great time to reach out about projects that you're thinking about bringing in for the next year, because that's a slightly slower time of year for me, and I'm more able to read projects and assess applications and give you advice before the crunch of application season. All right, so I've stopped sharing my screen. I don't know if my video is back or not, but that's it for me for now. We can move on to questions once the others are presented.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. So Shelley, we'll just jump to you and APTN.
Sure. Okay. So all of APTN's funding is for Indigenous because we're APTN. So we don't have a specific stream for our Indigenous productions. It's all for Indigenous productions. We do operate with the same guidelines that Adam mentioned that Telefilm has. It's 51% must have ownership over the production company, and 2 out of 3 minimum of writer, director, producer. Now, of course, that's it's not 3 people. You could have 4 producers. You could have, several directors if you're a series, several writers. But basically, it has to the math has to work. That it's about 2/3 Indigenous. So we have a lot of programs. First, I'll just start with we do the pre-development that Jill mentioned, and we sign the broadcaster letter of interest, and then we have a big development program. We are really encouraging development. Our development program is open all year round. You can, on our website, you can see what region you fall into. If you're from BC or Alberta, Yukon, you'll contact the Western manager. If you're in the Central region or the Eastern region, you can contact those managers as appropriately. So for development, I'd say that we're mostly develop documentary series, and most of these go through the CMF. So I'd say about 90% of our development is documentary series. We don't develop one-offs. We have another program for that for production, which I'll get into. We don't develop web series. We go straight into production for that as well. We do have one development program for feature films. It's currently open now. We issue these in an RFP. So on our website, again, if you go to the producer section, you'll see RFPs, and that's request for proposals. And you can see what's open now and when it closes. From the time it opens, there's usually about 2 months till it closes. So you have maybe 3 months. So you have enough time to get your application together. So yeah, we are looking for mainly documentary series for our development program, and it can be, usually it's 13 episodes. Sometimes if it's a new show, it's 9 episodes. We do ask in that development period that you come out of it with usually 2 scripts, the rest in outlines. So if it's 13 episodes, that would be 2 episode scripts, 11 outlines, and a demo, which is usually about a 5-minute demo of what your show would look like. It just give us the essence of what the show is. And that demo is super important to our committee when looking for production. So you want to do a really good job on that, and has to show off what your show is going to be like. So aside from development, like I said, if you do have a development idea, the application for submitting it is quite extensive. So I would highly recommend that you contact your regional manager and kind of soft pitch the idea, like for a temperature read, mainly because you don't know what we might already have in development or have had in the past or have currently airing or about to air. So you don't want to pitch a show that we already have potentially 3 different versions of already in the works. So be sure you talk to them. If your show is similar to something, we may suggest, how you can bring it in a slightly different direction that would actually complement our current shows in that in the schedule. They could follow each other if they're complementary, just different enough. If they're way too similar, we might just say, you're going to have to go in a completely different direction on this. We can definitely give you pointers of how to make your proposal more successful with the committee, because it is reviewed by a committee that usually is about 7 to 9 people. So it's not just that one manager looking at your proposal, it's quite a few people. From programming as well as from scheduling, we're looking in terms of what shows we already have. For production, we have a lot of programs for emerging talent, so you don't have to have a ton of credits. You don't have to have like 5 feature films to apply. Our web series program is one that we have that is available for emerging talent. That one goes straight to production, so you're expected to have developed it yourself to a reasonable amount that it can actually go straight into production. What's great about the web series is that we can fund 100% of it up to $30,000. So you're not obligated to find other funding. If you can do your web series with $30,000, we can be your sole funder. You are welcome to find other funding. For instance, if you're doing a drama, it can be a bit more expensive. So you can look for outside funding and we can make up a portion of your budget. It is open to documentary as well as dramatic projects. That happens once a year right now. And I believe it just passed. So it's usually launched, I think it's launched in the early new year, and then it closes in a couple months, probably in March or something. But if you look on our website, you'll always see what's open at the time. Another emerging director opportunity is called the Emerging Director RFP. That is for a 1-hour documentary. It's the only time we first window a 1-hour documentary. Otherwise, we reserve 1-hour docs for second window. And second window is available all year round as well. So if you already have a distributor, or rather a broadcaster for your first window, you can send it to us for a potential second window at any time. The Emerging Director one-off, it's a documentary only, and it is an Indigenous language program. That means you would apply to the CMF for the IP program, which means that you have to have original language in your documentary. So not all of our programs are Indigenous program, meaning that they're still Indigenous because all of our funds go to Indigenous productions, but they're not IP program with the CMF, which means the CMF IP program, it does require a language version. So you have to have at least 20% of originally shot Indigenous language in your documentary. So that could be people that you're interviewing. It could be the host, if the host speaks an Indigenous language. So there's different opportunities to insert that language into your program. We obviously will help you with your idea. If you come to us and it doesn't quite fit the language, we can assist you in how to make it fit. And then you end up delivering 2 versions to us. And we require that you send us a master for the English or French language version, plus another one for the Indigenous language version. So in that version, it's a fully Indigenous language version, but you would be getting voice actors to dub the English or French parts that isn't the 80% that's not your 20% required. Kind of complicated, which is why you can always contact one of the regional managers to go over this, because it is something that if it's your first time doing it, it is a little bit complicated, but it can be worked through easily. So in addition to that, most of our production is for series. So our first window production is for mostly series. We do an annual request for proposals for Indigenous language series. We do shows that are not Indigenous language, so you are welcome to submit for those as well. Most of them have been in development first, so that's why we're encouraging development, because when you come to us for production, we will give preference mostly to our shows that we've developed because we've already invested in them. Now, that isn't to say that stuff that we haven't developed won't get produced. It can. It's just that when the committee's reviewing it, we're going to look specifically at those shows that we have developed first. And if those shows we think we're going to do first, they'll get preference over it. But always you have an opportunity for, if it isn't developed and it's really strong and it's really already fully developed, there's a chance that we could produce that as well. As I said, second windows are open all year round, and we are more open to dramas and feature films and theatrical documentaries that are feature length with our second window. You can apply to that all year round. There's no RFPs for that. Just give us a call and see if we're interested, and we'll send you, you can apply with the application. Acquisitions we cover as well. So anything you're already finished, that's completed, that's done shooting or mostly done shooting, would go to our acquisitions department. As I said, everything is for Indigenous creatives. We don't have anything that isn't, so we're 100% Indigenous funding. Yeah, so I think that gives an overview. It's a lot of information. Usually I do a 1 hour presentation with a PowerPoint as well. So I'm kind of condensing that into as small as I can. I'm sure I've missed a ton of stuff, but feel free to ask anything in the question period that you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for sharing your guys' organizations. I was like, kept on going to write questions down, and then you guys would answer them. I'm like, no. But I think we'll jump into the question period. Jill,
Sorry, Darcy, before we do, can I just say one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. The 51% is the same for APTN, the same for Telefilm, it's the same for the CMF. As of this year, if it's multiple producers making up that 51%, no one can own less than 15. So that's a distinction for us. Also, Shelley, I wanted to talk about your web series, because we have a web series fund, which we're calling Digital Linear Series now. And we don't have nearly enough Indigenous applicants. So I wonder if there's a way that we can work on that together.
I think there would be, for sure, because we would like, as I said, for ours, we can fund 100% of the budget, but it's only $30,000. So it would be great if they could apply to you as well.
But we're second season only. So
second season, right.
Yeah. Bell Fund or IPF or something, and then with the help from you in first season came to us in second season, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Sorry, Darcy.
No, it's great questions, right? Because I was just about to jump into web series. We have a question for you, Jill. Is this strictly for TV, or do you guys also accept web series applications?
Yeah, we have a fantastic web series fund. It comes under our experimental fund because you don't have to have a broadcaster attached to a web series. But yeah, and as I just mentioned, it has to be in a second or subsequent season for us. So go to APTN and do your first season and then come see us. The maximum you can get from us is $250,000. And we have an international jury for that. We get jury members from the UK, Europe, Brazil, and to sit on this jury, and we pick fantastic projects that the world will like. So yeah, I encourage you to apply if you're listening. Yeah.
And then I guess, Shelley, with APTN, let's say you get your first season. How do you approach you guys to get your second season so that we can go to the CMF and start?
Yeah, the same way. So through the next year's RFP, come back to us with your second season idea. And again, I don't know with Jill, but we do accept documentary second seasons as well as dramatic second seasons.
Yeah, we children's and youth dramas, drama series, and doc series. The only thing we don't do is variety and performing arts in web series.
And also, Adam, the Talent to Watch. The Talent to Watch program has a web series component, or is it kind of?
It does, yeah, it does for this year. I mean, I think that there's always a question about how many web series are going to come through, and programs change from year to year. But as of right now, there is still web series as part of Talent to Watch.
Okay, perfect. So
and there's no first season, second season. It's intended for a first season, so it's a good place to get a good start on that.
Okay, perfect. So this next question is for everybody. Where would each of you guys recommend they start in terms of working with your organizations for emerging filmmakers? We'll go with Adam. You're the I'll go with you again.
Me. Probably just shoot me an email, give me a call. Sometimes of year are very busy. Like right now is extremely busy, but I'm hoping that in a handful of weeks things will quiet down. It's been a little bit of a strange year, just as far as getting decisions out, and everything with COVID has really put a lot of stress on the organization. But generally, if you want to give me a call or shoot me an email, we can have a chat about where you're at, what you're wanting to do project wise, and then we can talk about where to go from there. But I think that that's the easiest way. I mean, there's certainly a lot of information on the website, and I would always encourage people, if you know what you want to do and you know what program you want to come to, definitely, put in the work and look at the guidelines, read through the essential information guide. Very soon there will be an Indigenous frequently asked questions guide going up on the website. So I encourage you to take a look at that. But beyond that, and I know that sometimes just looking at paperwork can be kind of alienating. Beyond that, just give me a call and we can talk about things.
Jill?
I encourage second what Adam said, read the guidelines. We have many programs, so please do your homework and figure out which one is right for you. We also have, I didn't even mention this, but we have international incentives with other countries. You can go on our website and see which ones we have. If you are friends with producers in other countries and have a great idea and want to work together, that's an access for you as well for development funding. And also, we have 4 offices. We have an office in Vancouver. If you're West Coast based, please call, somebody in our Vancouver office. If you want to, Christine Chu, if you want to talk about development, Monica or Sasha, if you want to talk about production. A lot of people, know these people. Toronto, we have a big office. Halifax, Montreal. Just pick up the phone and call one of us or email one of us, and we'll be happy to walk you through some programs and answer your questions.
And Shelley?
Yeah, so for emerging people, as I've said, basically the emerging director RFP that comes out in January, take a look at that. That's the 1-hour doc. And the web series for production is open to emerging talent. If you are thinking of putting in a development application for a 13-part doc series and you don't have any experience, you'll need to find to partner with another Indigenous producer that does have experience. So, and this does happen quite frequently. We've had people that, they have some experience, but not a lot, and they've never produced a series, but they have partnered with a team that has, and now they are producing a series. And once that's done, they would have enough experience of their own to apply on their own next time. But so definitely there's different ways that you can go about it. We have a lot of opportunity for emerging talent. We've had people that have, done the web series RFP a few times, and then they've gone on to do a series on their own with us. So definitely people move through it and get more experience with us with working with APTN. And there's a lot of opportunity available. Give the manager in your region a call. And as everybody else said, do look at the guidelines. We have guidelines for everything on our website, and make sure that you're familiar with them and that you have at least, flipped through them.
Yeah, definitely. I was kind of personal experience. Like I started working with APTN right out of film school, and you guys have definitely helped build me to the career that I have right now. So it's, going through your guys' system, it definitely helps. We have another question. Is for Adam for Telefilm. Is there future plans for adding in funding or support to the artists? The funding covers for creative creation of the film series, but what about like artist fees and stuff?
What do you mean by artist fees?
Like being paid on the project, I guess. I think that's. Sorry if I get your question wrong.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can start answering if you want to clarify. That's fine while I'm talking. But basically, there's the $4 million allocation. At this point, there isn't any plans to add more money to the fund. Not because there isn't willingness there, but funds to Telefilm haven't increased for quite some time. So. The messaging that I've heard about that is basically until Telefilm gets more money, then this stream is going to be funded at the level that it is for at least the foreseeable future. But these things have a way of shifting over time. As far as people getting paid, so that when you come in with a project application, the producer makes the budget and they allocate that money essentially however they want, but usually within certain industry standards. So ideally everybody gets paid. But if you're coming in with a micro budget film or a low budget film, sometimes the producer says, okay, well, we're gonna reinvest our producer fees. The director is willing to reinvest their fees. Different members of the crew are going to donate their labor as a way of basically getting more out of that money. And it's a really, I understand from making films, like how hard that is, because you know that if you invest your fees, you're going to be able to put more of that money on screen. But the people who are able to do that are people who are coming from, they've got some money sitting around so that they can support themselves through other means. And so you're often caught in this situation as a creator, like, do I put that money into supporting myself, or do I put that money on screen? And I think that's a difficult situation that every producer handles in a different way. But there's certainly nothing within Telefilm to say, people have to get paid a certain amount, or people shouldn't be paid a certain amount. That's up to the producer.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, they just clarify the question. So the directors and filmmakers are able to pay themselves with a fee for the Telefilm funding. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Jill, this one's for you. It's about the up and coming writers application. You said you did 5 credits, 5 writing credits.
Yes.
That have to be like on-screen broadcast credits, like
yes.
Shorts, or like.
It doesn't matter what length. It doesn't matter what length it is. It just needs to be 5 writing credits that for a project that's been produced and broadcast.
Okay, so but no, like it can't be like a feature that's on like a.
Doesn't matter what length it is, as long as there's 5 of them. So it can be 5 Bravo Fact shorts, or whatever it is.
Okay, perfect. Any more questions here? I don't think there are. So this is kind of like the one that I always like to ask. Coming as a younger filmmaker, developing in the industry. What was kind of the mistakes that you kind of see that if they would know, they would have a more successful application?
Can I start?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry. Yeah.
It's just fresh in my mind because we just did met for the fun the other day. So we have a document checklist on our website, and it's a really good idea to have it beside you when you're uploading your application, to make sure you give us everything, because for the Production Indigenous Fund, it's a jury looking at this. They're looking at the documents, and we don't encourage them to go and Google something that's not in the documents. So if you're missing a key CV for your director or a writer or your producer, that's not great, because we're scoring you on teams. So you should submit your CVs because it's on the document checklist. If you've won a bunch of awards and you don't fill out that award and festival form, that's also a misstep, because we could give you points because you've won awards. If we ask for a director's vision, you should probably give a director's vision, because they're going to want to read what you want to do with this and where you want to take it. Previous links to, if you're coming in with a returning series, it's great to send us Vimeo links of previous seasons so we can see what the show looked like, because we do watch the demos and previous seasons during the comparative, just so, because not everybody looks at every project. So that's really helpful as well. So just, I would say just go through the checklist and as much as you can, fulfill that obligation. Yeah.
Shelley?
Same thing, definitely. We have a checklist for everything. Make sure your application is complete. Don't just put in what you want to put in. If it's like 9 out of 18 items, make sure it's complete. Make sure all your files are labeled appropriately, not just synopsis, because there's a million files labeled synopsis. So make sure it has your information on it, so we know whose show it is too. Yeah, make sure your application is complete. Like I said, call your manager beforehand, because submitting a huge application for something that we already have is not a good use of your time. So please let people know your idea first, and encourage you to submit with it before you submit a full application of something that we're not looking for because we have 15 cooking shows or whatever it is.
Adam?
For Telefilm, and I would say to some degree also for juries at the CMF that I've been around for, the biggest scoring element is the creative, and it's the one that independent producers, writers, directors work on the most. But the issue that I see the most often is that there is a disconnect between the director's vision that's being articulated and the script. So either, and actually fairly often the way that it works is that the jury really loves the vision and really loves the director's intentions for the project and gets really excited about that. And then they look at the script and they say, oh, it's too bad that the script doesn't entirely deliver on those intentions. So I would really recommend that you do a read of the script, not only for the question of whether or not the script is working, but whether or not that script really, really expresses what's in your director's vision. And if it doesn't, it's a lot easier to change the text of your director's vision to point to what's working in the script than it is to go through and overhaul the script to your director's vision, depending on time. But that's really important. I think I see a lot of creative conversations break down around that point, where the jury is saying, does this person know the show that they're making? And do they know the ways that it's currently falling short? Because if they know that, then they can address those things as they move toward production. If they don't know that, and if they're not committed to getting there, then we're not sure if we want to support this team. So that's something that I see that's really important. And something that's more and more important every year is pitch decks and lookbooks. It's not an essential document at Telefilm, but the people who are getting supported often have those pitch books or pitch decks and lookbooks attached. So tell your story with images. Get in there and present a compelling package that sparks the imaginations of the people who are looking at your application. Because no matter how beautifully written that text is, if you add images to it that really reflect the intent of that project that you want to make, it's going to help the jury make that mental leap to saying, oh yeah, we can see this thing, we can see the director's intentions here, we understand how all these pieces fit together. Anyway, there's a million things, but those two I think are really critical for the creative side.
And Adam mentioned lookbooks. Shelley, how important is it, like when someone's coming to you, that you have a look?
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. If it's all just text, and it is on our checklist, it is there that there is a director's vision, and it doesn't specifically say you have to send a lookbook, but there are examples that it says you have to submit. I don't know the exact wording, but it basically is the creative, like the visual creative. So send what you have. If this is like a kids animation thing, send the sketches if you have, so we can see what these characters might look like. If it's not, if you want us to see the feel of it, like a pitch deck and a lookbook, like with similar shows, with pictures that evoke the mood that you want, like the feeling that you want the show to have, that what the characters would look like, even though they're not cast yet, like the wardrobe, the palette of the show. So everything that you kind of envision and that's in your written director's vision statement, put that in your lookbook, and it's fun to do. So, I mean, that's the best part of it. So, we love to see it. It's definitely, we can get sold on something like that. We see it and we're like, yes, like we have to develop this, it's so good. We can picture it in our heads. So I would highly recommend that you do spend some time on that as well.
Perfect. Yeah. And then another question I had for you, Shelley, was because we were all talking about connecting with the mentorship or experienced production company. If they don't have one just yet, are they still to send you like a temperature read, and then you guys like, oh, we know this company, they'd be good for this? There's that kind of a.
We don't usually recommend companies to partner with, but what we do recommend is that if there is a show that we have, and it's you like it, like you like the style of it, and you like the way it looks and the way it's done, the way it's written, just contact those people. So if they happen to be in your area, or even if they don't, you don't have to live in the same area. You can live provinces away. But so say if it's a show that you've been watching, I'm not going to name any shows right now, and you're like, yeah, that's a great show. I got this idea, but I don't have enough experience. I've only done this one thing, or I came out of school. Contact them and say, hey, I've got this great show. I love your show. This is a show that I have. I don't quite have enough experience to work with APTN. Like at this point, might you want to partner on this? And they might want to. So those are in the end credits. Just stay tuned till the end credits and see who produced it and contact those people. That's definitely one way you can do it if you don't have a contact yourself that you can think of in the industry. And if you're applying like for something like development or production of a series that would require you to have more experience with us, then definitely do that.
And I guess Adam, really, because we think how many, because our Indigenous funding is only 4 million. How many productions usually get like features get green lights or? Sorry, I'm looking for my words right now, but
yeah, I know what you mean. So it depends on the year, because in the stream, the productions that are coming in, there's talent to watch, there's low budget, and there's high budget films that are all being funded out of the same $4 million / $3.8 million pot. And there's also people that come in for post applications and documentary funds as well. So those, like what producers are asking for, can range from, for a completion request, it could range from maybe $60,000 at the low end up to, like, I think the highest that the fund ever supported a project at was 1.7 million. So obviously, if it's a year where there's a project that's being supported at the $1.7 million mark, that's a year where we're going to fund fewer total films. But if it's a big year for post-production applications, for documentaries, for low budget, and there aren't any films that make it in at the over $2.5 million level, then we're going to fund, like, in total, more movies. So I think like one year it was 4. I think that another year was like 9. So it's kind of all over the map. The only thing that's really consistent is that $4 million. Okay. And that's at the discretion of the jury. So that we don't carve out the money to say, like, you have to spend X amount of dollars on a national film for this year. The jury can really use their discretion to say which films are the strongest, which are the projects that we're most excited about funding, and that's where they put their money.
Okay, that's really interesting. The big question I'm very interested in is kind of combining all 3 of your guys' organizations to fund a feature film. So then, like, I think we'll start with you, Shelley. We go and apply for the production fund, that's the RFP. And then once we have that, we would go to Jill, we would go to the CMF, right?
Well, I think Telefilm's deadline is first, so you'd probably go to Telefilm first and then us. Yeah.
And we have a lot of shows that come to us with talent to watch attached.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, because I'm just curious. This is the first time I'm hearing of how you can combine all 3 of you guys and get yourself to that above the 1 million mark, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And for Telefilm's often first in on a project. So lots of times projects are coming in and they don't have really any confirmed financing. They've done their tax credit calculations, so they can say, well, we're hoping to get $500,000 from Telefilm, and we're going to get X amount in federal tax credits or provincial tax credits, and that money it's not guaranteed, but they can pretty well count on it. And then, they make up the rest with broadcast licenses and distributor MGs and that kind of thing. But a lot of the time it's not confirmed. So Telefilm will often be the first one to confirm financing in a plan like that, but the plan still has to be realistic. So that's another thing that often can point to a team not being ready, is when they come in with a financing plan with unrealistic numbers. So the jury will look at it and say, like, there's an $800,000 broadcast fee from CBC that's not confirmed, and like they're not going to get that for a feature. And if they don't know that, then what else don't they know?
That's a really good point. Can I chime in?
Sure, yeah.
I think not just the Indigenous Fund, but a lot of our selective funds. I think a lot of producers think that if they apply with a really low budget, we'll find that attractive, and we'll think, oh, well, this budget's only X amount. That seems great. We should do this one. And we don't actually look at it that way. We actually, read your script. We go through all your documents, and we do have a conversation about whether we think you can make it for that. What if there's a bunch of CGI, or what if a bunch of travel in a documentary? Or so we do actually look at the budgets and think, geez, that's really low. Maybe that's risky. So I guess my point is, apply with a realistic budget. You're not going to scare us. If your budget's, $4 million or 800,000 or whatever it is for your project, you're not going to frighten us away if it's realistic. So just apply with a reasonable, real budget.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you're pitching a music show or a show that is born to have a music soundtrack, and you've budgeted $500 in your music rights, that's a red flag. So, and it like Adam said, then what else don't you know about? So if it's special effects, or if it's music, or if it's a period piece and you haven't budgeted anything for period vehicles and costumes or whatever it may entail, that's obviously more red flags. So do make it realistic.
Awesome. Well, I think we gotta wrap it up. But thank you guys so much for joining us, and sharing all your guys' organizations. Sorry, let me get my notes here. And please, everyone, stick around for the next screening, which is a very special presentation of 10 new short films from the local Indigenous Filmmakers Association called Depachmowin. Sorry, guys, I may have mispronounced that. Treaty 1. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to our panelists, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.